How's it going, everyone? This is PedanticGamer, and today I'm doing my first impressions on Resident Evil 6. And let's get started. Alright, in the game there's 3 main game modes that are available from the get-go essentially. Well, 2 from the get-go and 1 that you have to play through. There's the campaigns, which there's 3 main campaigns, and then there's apparently going to be a 4th campaign, and there is New Game Plus. I haven't yet played with New Game Plus, but I have finished the first actual campaign, which is Leon's campaign, which was absolutely fantastic. There are some issues I did have with it though, and with the overall some design choices I do take issue with that I didn't personally think worked as well as they could have or really should have within the game. The other game mode is of course Mercenaries. That's available from the start, unlike Resident Evil 5 where it was actually only available once you finish the game. And there's also Agent Hunt, which you actually have to finish one of the campaigns to play. And in this you basically play, like in Left 4 Dead, as one of the enemies in someone else's game. So when someone else is playing through a campaign, you take on the role of a zombie or infected, depending on which part of the game they're up to. It is kind of fun, but it can be kind of annoying because a lot of the time you're playing as a zombie and it's just, they're so slow to get there and then they die so easily. It has its moments, but overall I'm not going to spend much time in Agent Hunt, or I don't think I would. And of course there's the ever-addicting Mercenaries mode, which I'll jump into a game now and take a look at. Now I'm going to play solo because, well, at the moment I can't actually play online. It has been leaked early in Australia, or released early in Australia, which is maybe why. Maybe the servers aren't up, I'm not entirely sure, but the other online modes do work, but in Mercenaries it just doesn't connect to any games for me. I'm not sure why, and I've only got 1 stage unlocked, and by default you have 3 characters you can play as. Personally I like playing as Jake so far, who is Wesker's son. Now the loading screens. Now this is one issue that something that I really didn't like in the game so far, the implementation of loading screens. There'll often be a cutscene, followed by a loading screen, followed by another cutscene. And it really breaks the flow of the game, and it's something they could have done a lot more with and actually had either a long cutscene or, I'm not sure, it really breaks the flow of the game, and it would have been nice had they been able to have it not be an issue. Anyway, let's play here, and the first thing you'll notice is the fact that I can move and aim at the same time, which is the first time a main Resident Evil title, that is one of the numbered Resident Evil titles, has allowed you to do that. Some people will immediately dislike this, but personally I felt it was about time they updated it, and I like going hand-to-hand combat with this guy because, well, he can just kind of devastate people. And finishing moves for extra time. And I think it's going to be a huge issue for many people, I would imagine, who just want the old Resident Evil experience. This is not going to provide you the exact old experience from Resident Evil 4, or of course the even earlier games, which were from a different camera perspective even. Personally I'm very glad for the update, and I really think it was about time they updated it. And there's no reason you can't provide horror, which just seems to be the main argument, that being able to aim and move at the same time would reduce the horror, but from what I've played that's not the case, and I'll pull out a gun here. One issue I do have is in the Mercenaries mode is sometimes you can spend a bit too long looking for actual enemies. More so than in previous Mercenary games, or game modes, although there was of course the Mercenaries game on the 3DS, which tended to have enemies around you all the time, and it's just something that, look how long I've been walking around here for and no enemies. Oh, there we go. Which makes it really hard to actually pull off high time bonus, or high scores, because there's only a limited number of those time bonuses, such as this one, that you can actually knock down. You can't keep on finding them, there's only a set number of course. Now, on the gameplay note, a lot of people will, as I was saying, dislike it simply because it's different. Personally, I do like the changes they've made for the most part. And they're throwing all these time bonuses at me at the moment and no enemies. But I can definitely see why some people would be reluctant to the changes at hand. And I really hope some enemies start coming out soon. And they've especially taken it maybe a bit too far with being able to do this and then flip around. Though once again you are playing Wesker's son, so it would make sense for this character to be, well, a lot more maneuverable than usual, but all the characters are able to do that thus far. But personally, I like the change. I think it's for the better. And really, where are the enemies? It's annoying. I find some games they seem to all crowd around, and then other times they just only one comes out at a time. Maybe it's got something to do with when you get the time bonuses. I'm not too sure about that, but it is an annoyance nonetheless. There's another time bonus there, but I'm not going to bother getting it yet. Ah, here they are, all coming out of the clockwork now. Now, from the perspective of the story is essentially what you'd expect from Resident Evil. There's massive bosses, which are tied into who the bad guy is, of course, and I don't want to spoil anything, but at the start my main gripe is, in Leon's campaign at least, he seems to act very un-Leonish at first, which is quite a big annoyance because, well, he just seems to go along with what's happening. He doesn't really take charge of the situation for far too long. And then even then when he does sort of take charge, he still really is just going along with it. It just so happens that he agrees with what the action is. And it seems more like a fan complaint though than a genuine complaint about the story. It really serves its purpose, and whether it works or fails will largely depend on how well the three different campaigns, or three main campaigns, tie into one another. And why do I say three main campaigns? Because there's a fourth campaign where you get to play as Ada Wong, which will only be available in single player, and you have to finish the other three campaigns before you can do that. Which might seem unfortunate or a pain, but apparently the campaigns do tie in with one another. And, well, I'm not too bothered by that. There's plenty to keep you occupied, and I can't imagine people wouldn't want to play through all three campaigns, although once again some people who didn't like the more action-y style of Resident Evil 5, for example, might find themselves not enjoying especially Chris's campaign based on the small amount I have played from it. I have only finished the actual campaign of Leon's though, and Helena's, which is a new character in the Resident Evil series as far as I'm aware. I haven't played every Resident Evil though, so she may have been in one of the minor releases, but I've played all the main titles and she hasn't appeared in any of them or been mentioned as far as I know. So story-wise, it really comes down to how well the different stories link up, and it was really, well, you knew exactly what was going to happen and whatnot, especially because the trailers kind of spoiled the showdown. But when Leon and Chris first meet, it's a fantastic moment, and I kind of wish the trailers hadn't given it away, because that would have absolutely blown me away in a way that it wasn't able to, because I knew what was going to happen. But nonetheless, I really am interested to see how it all ties together, and I am very impressed with how the game actually plays. I am in two minds about how replayable it will be though. I always find co-op games are generally more replayable because of course games are more fun with your friends, but there's nothing intrinsically about how the game plays that makes it for a better co-op experience. I think you could have very easily made this game a single player experience with just some slight tweaks to the story, and the game wouldn't have been any worse off for it. So there is that question about whether you really needed to be co-op, but nonetheless you do get the option to play single player in any of them with an artificial intelligence partner, or of course Ada Wong's campaign will be single player only. So it's really hard to make a complaint about it. There seems to be a whole lot of content provided in this game, and especially once Resident Evil Net actually launches, which is promising to be somewhat like Call of Duty Elite, with competitions and whatnot, except there's no free DLC and it is a free service, which will be very interesting to see how that changes the Resident Evil experience, so to speak. But I'm very impressed so far. There are some slight tweaks and issues that some people might not like, such as it's still very much so action-oriented, like Resident Evil 5, not to the same extent. That there's definitely a mixture of Resident Evil 4 in there that I feel, at least in Leon's campaign. But for some people that might not be enough, and this is my main complaint, what you're seeing right now. It's these bloody button mashing scenes. They're just not fun, and they happen far too often. And that's quick time events, of course, and the most annoying of which is the one you just saw, whereby you have to actually mash the stick left to right, left to right, left to right, left to right. And it's just not fun is the ultimate problem, and I'm going to die here. There's no way I'm going to get out of this alive. And it's an obvious design flaw in my mind. It doesn't add to the game in any way, and it really takes away from several moments that would have been absolutely amazing without it. Although they are still very good, it detracts from the experience, and if it's not adding to the story, which it doesn't, and it doesn't add to the gameplay, well then it probably shouldn't be there. But nonetheless, Resident Evil 6 is a very good game. At least so far. I would highly recommend it if you're at all interested in it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I do hope to see you next time. Let's hope that recorded.